Attention, ladies and gentlemen. Rex Bear cannot show up. He has been abducted by the Anunnaki and he's being held by Inky. Inky prefers tea. Rex wanted coffee. He got upset, so he said that he would hold him while we were doing this webinar. I'm just kidding. Rex said that he'll be a little late. We love all of you. Thank you for joining us. We've got Steve Olson from WSO, Jeff Doherty from New Cosmic Knowledge Channel, and we're waiting on Jeff Bear. He's late as usual, just like those Hollywood kind. You know, they show up fashionably late and leave fashionably early.
So yeah, we're on Rex time, Derek. Yeah, we're on Rex time.
That's Rex time is the new time. Awesome. Well, hopefully, let me try to get to a chat window here so we can make sure that we're actually live.
Nice to see you, Steve. I know we've been conversing in chat rooms, but it's nice to actually see you face to face. Nice to meet you, my friend.
Nice to meet you as well, Jeff.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
Everybody's had a chance to meet each other within the chat rooms, and but unfortunately, we haven't. None of us have actually had a chance to meet face to face yet. I feel like I know all of you guys like brothers. It's crazy how much time we spend together on here, and in chat and phone calls and everything. It's almost a tighter relationship than with people that I actually know physically.
It really is. It's interesting how that works.
Well, the other thing I noticed too is I listen to you both, right? And so it feels like I already know you, you know, because when you spend hours and hours listening to folks, it's like you really get to know a person, you know. You feel like you do anyway.
You know, it's funny you mention that because Sandra started watching me probably almost 2 years ago, and you know, Sophia, her daughter, was also watching during, you know, all that time. And then when Sandra and I actually started getting together about a year ago, well, not even that, about 6 months ago, it was, you know, that whole dynamic. She meets me, thinks she already knows me. Of course, I don't know her, and Sophia thinks she already knows me. So it is a real thing.
It absolutely is a real thing. And the, you know, the funny thing is when I was in Hollywood, obviously I was around a lot of stars, a lot of movie stars all the time. And when we would go out, the people would feel like they knew them so personally because they've seen them, they've loved them, they've talked about them. They were, you know, they're their water cooler conversations. They followed them in Star Magazine or National Enquirer. So they've gone through their, you know, their ups and downs together, and they would come up and start talking like they know you. And it's amazing that they don't actually realize. Very, very nice change there. Now we've all got hats.
I said I needed a hat, so.
My light dimmed quite a bit in the room in the last 2 minutes too. I'll turn it this way a little bit. Hey, there you go.
Yeah, we got to get you one of these fancy lights, Steve.
Right on.
I'll order one for you. They're not expensive. So yeah, but we would go in and one time we were tell you a funny story. This is pure entertainment value. While we're waiting on Jeff to get to the real brunt of the subject. I mean, on waiting on Rex. That we were in a restaurant up in Portland, Oregon. We were shooting a movie called Men of Honor. At the time, the working title was called Navy Diver. And Robert De Niro's with us, and Cuba's there. And we're in this restaurant that's just like a Chili's or something. And everybody kept coming up to Cuba and saying, you know, show me the money. Oh, I love you. And, you know, show me the money. That never, that was a constant. And here's Robert De Niro sitting right next to me. And I'm looking at these people, they're coming and they're saying to Cuba, show me the money. And I said, hey, don't you want to say hello to Robert De Niro? And they would look at him and they go, yeah, like that's Robert De Niro. They couldn't believe he was such a huge star in their mind. It was incomprehensible that he could actually be right there. And he would just give that look that he's got. He would just do that. And I talked to him, I go, it's crazy. I could go anywhere with you and you're never going to be Robert De Niro, right? How could I, this nobody that they don't know my face, ever be seen with Robert De Niro? It was hysterical. And a similar situation, we were in Florida with Anthony Hopkins, and we were doing the movie called Instinct. And of course, he had long, long hair, and we could go to Denny's with that guy anywhere. Man, people would offer him change like he was a bum, like he was a homeless bum. It was hysterical that just to witness all of those things, you know, how it takes place. But I can tell, I mean, we could do a 4-hour show. I could tell you Hollywood story after Hollywood story that would probably invade a whole bunch of people's privacy, but I won't do that.
You know, Derek, I hate to try to turn everything to a spiritual bent, but when you think about it, there's, you know, walking right up and Robert De Niro's right there and people don't know who he is. Anthony Hopkins right there, people don't know who he is. Two of the greatest actors of our generation, maybe any generation. And how many people day after day week after week, month after month, year after year, look truth right in the face, are this close to it, but cannot, will not, refuse to see truth as plain as Robert De Niro, as plain as Anthony Hopkins, and they just can't look at truth and see it.
That's beautiful. Jeff, see, that's why I love you. You're right into the spiritual. That's an absolute perfect lead in too.
It brings in a conversation I was having with one of my subscribers today. We were talking about the anthropology involved with, coming in contact with the new tribe that hasn't been, contacted the modern world yet. And I know we've all talked about this and thought about this, but if you're not aware of it, the audience isn't aware of it. They have to be very, very careful on how they approach an indigenous tribe that has never been exposed to the external world, like in the Amazon or somewhere like that. And they've learned that you could shock the native people that hasn't been in contact with the modern world very badly. So they have to take very careful approaches in order to even contact them. Hey, Rex, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how the heck are you?
You're looking good. You're looking fine and spiffy. We started off the show, Rex, saying that you hadn't shown up because you were abducted by the Anunnaki, that Inky got into an argument with you about whether it was
actually, Rex has been here
It was actually the Nanunnaki that we thought got him, the Nanunnaki.
It was a combination of both. The Nanunnaki united with the Anunnaki, and then the Ajiji showed up. So there you have it.
And look at this. We're all wearing hats.
I'm impressed. I like the hats that you all have on. Different hats, different styles. Very fantastic. This is great. It's going to be fun now. I mean, I've got a Wi-Fi router built into my hat. So
I'm going with the Huck Finn.
Yeah, Huck Finn. I like that big time. This is the cheapest hat I could find at Walmart. And literally the cheapest I could find. They were trying to give them away. So,
well, Rex, I'm ordering the material, and I'm going to have black beanies made with an inner liner of the 5G material, so we can have 5G beanies too.
Nice.
Except me, I can't monetize stuff on my channel, so I'll give them away.
I've actually done the opposite. I put a 5G router into this hat, just so I could have better internet access. I wanted to do the neural lace with, like Elon Musk did, so that way I could download stuff faster. So it's just, we'll see how it works out.
So Rex, I wanted the show is called Aliens and Jesus, Apocalypse of the Anunnaki, because as we get into the next few months, there seems to be, it's amazing that we all work separately. Nobody's calling each other and going, hey, we're going to be looking at this, and I'm going to look at this, and I'm taking a look at that, or I've seen this. But somehow we all fall upon the same exact understandings or truths, the same themes. And it's because those seem to come out in it's like the Akashic record. That wave of the record hits us and we hear it. Others don't, but we hear it, and it brings up people to us and brings it to us. Or we just immediately start talking about it and wonder about it, So it's kind of like we bring our consciousness to the forefront. We talk to everybody about what we're thinking about on a daily basis, and it's amazing.
I thought all you guys were copying me.
Yeah, we were all copying Jeff. No, but it's amazing. So, the things that are being revealed, obviously, the word apocalypse meaning revealing, and what I was talking with Malia last night. And I've said this a few times. I was like, the people think that apocalypse means destruction, but the reality is ultimately it does mean destruction, because once the truth, thankfully right now, it's actually being dripped out. That even though it seems like we're revealing a lot of truths all at one time, it's being given to us in a drip, that if everything is revealed to everybody in a single second, the people of this planet will burn this place to the ground. They will destroy everything. The apocalypse will come from within. And that is truly what will happen, is that when these things are revealed, the people are going to tear this place down. They're going to tear the things down. They're going to tear the kingdoms and the kings. And that's ultimately what it is, as far as the kingdom being within us and who we are as humans, being light men, light people. So Rex, with that said, and this title being Aliens and Jesus, what over the past week has triggered you, startled you, and we'll go through everybody. What has triggered you or startled you this week that seemed really new?
really new as regards to current events, or just my own personal?
All of the above, anything and everything. It all falls into the same category.
Okay. So I had Erin Elizabeth on the show recently, and I discovered Erin Elizabeth from somebody that was just helping out booking guests. They said, "Hey, can I book some guests?" I said, "Sure." And so I interviewed her a few months ago, and I was really skeptical when I did the interview, but obviously I like to bring different aspects to the table, and great interview. By the end of the interview, I wasn't as skeptical. And then then her and I booked another opportunity for her to come back on the Leak Project, which she did a few days ago. And she did like this channeling thing. And I'm usually really skeptical about channeling. Actually, I always am. And even when she offered to do it at first, I was like, maybe I would rather have you do it for a guest, is what I was thinking in my head. But I said, just let her do it. And when she did this channeling on the channel, on the Leak Project on YouTube, she did it live. And either she's watched all of my episodes or many of the episodes and found a way to put a psychological profile together for me where she could get different reactions and responses, find a way to pull my heartstrings and stuff like that, and just combine all this data and to make me think, wow, that's, to break the barriers of the skeptic and say, wow, I get that. And whether or not everything she said was accurate, I don't know. But what I did was I'm a kinesthetic kind of person. So if somebody's telling me something and I'm resonating with it, my hair sometimes, even if it'll just start standing up all over my body. And she was talking about it. And the whole time the hair is just standing up on my body as she's saying this stuff. And my mind's connecting all these dots. And then she was saying some things, was like putting a lot of stuff on my shoulders. But there was a few names that she said specifically that really that she said, okay, I see 3 beings around you right now. One is your higher self, and then these 2 are these Annunaki beings. And hey, obviously that's a lot to believe. And so she told me these names, and then I looked up these names, and the crazy thing. So a couple of the names, one of them, Abu, is most likely Dumazid, which was one of the first kings on the Sumerian king list. And he was on one side. And then the other name she said was Ermac. And so I looked up Ermac, and Ermac was this Mortal Kombat character that had all these souls that was created by a bunch of different souls. And then he worked for the Dark Emperor, and then he found a way to break free from that. And then he had a choice to choose good or bad, and he chose good. But it's just weird because she was like all the different souls and all the connections being merged with Ermac. And then I'm thinking about, and then she was talking about how I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I know a lot, I know a little about a lot, but I'm not a specific master on any particular topic. But I do dive into a whole bunch of different things. And all this stuff that she was saying, it was even resonating with the TV shows that I have been watching recently, and like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that. And then she was talking about the Emerald Tablets and all the stuff that she said just resonated at such a high level. And then she said, my higher Pleiadian self, which, once again, you hear that and you're like, okay, come on now, channeling a Pleiadian. And then, but it was Elik. And I've always had, you know how everybody's got the 2, I don't know about you guys, but you see the TV show where you'll have the devil on one shoulder and then the angel on the other shoulder, and everybody's got that. But when she said Elik, the name Elik, I think of Enlil with L, and then Ik, you flip that around and that's Ki, and that's Enki. So I'm thinking Enlil, Enki, just the archetypes kind of at a higher consciousness, the duality merged as one. But it was just really fascinating. So that's the new resonation that I've been getting lately. And I was going to do a podcast specifically on that because it was so powerful. And whatever it was an exciting journey. It was an exciting podcast. It had me on the edge the whole time. So what are your guys' thoughts about that?
That's awesome.
That was that blonde girl that you had on your show that's supposed to be a Pleiadian or a Nordic or something like that?
Yeah. Elizabeth April is her name.
And what do you think about her now? Do you think she is one of those people?
Well, I think that whatever she said to me resonated with me as far as just an energy level. It felt really powerful, and I've still been processing it and thinking about it. And, I'm attempting to be like I'm trying to debunk it, and you can't. I mean, you could say, yeah, maybe she did watch all your podcasts and she put something together and she's just really good at speaking and stuff. But you watch her in the body language and you can tell she's genuine. You're watching her eye movements and stuff like that. And, if you study neuro-linguistic programming, and if somebody says something and you look up and to the left, if you're right-handed, you're probably seeing something that you've seen before. Doesn't mean you're telling a lie. It's just based upon, what you're thinking, if you're visual, auditory, kinesthetic, et cetera. But wow, I mean, what a powerful experience that was. So that makes me think. And then she was talking about like being, getting to a point to where I can go to a higher level, but I don't want to because I like fear jumps in. So I just kind of want to stay where I'm at. She was saying that I had an opportunity to get, to a higher level of consciousness, like with the Ascended Masters. But every time I get to a certain point, I'm like, no, I'm not ready. So, and just thinking about it, like right now, it's got me emotional a little bit. That was weird, man. It was pretty powerful.
The chat room is split down the middle. Some say she was playing you, she profiled you. Some say she's legit. So it's interesting. She
could have been. Hey, you know what? She could have been. I've studied neurolinguistic programming, conversational hypnosis. I know about, body language and all that, and I get it. And I'm a good judge of character. For my position in, for 15 years, I had to be a good judge of character. I had to know if somebody was lying to me and what their hot points were and stuff like that. So I know how to put somebody together. I know how to get some, oh yeah, really? I could do this. I could do that. Like the other day I was talking to a media guy that was telling me, oh yeah, you're great. And this such and such thinks you're wonderful. And then they send me a contract and I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, well, there's a lot of stuff in there. Let's see how wonderful they really think I am. You know what I mean? Like then you send back a couple things like, well, I want you to take this out of the contract, take this out of the contract. And then you're going from somebody that they think you're great to they don't need you anymore. I don't know. Right. I'm just kind of saying, so I understand that she could have been doing that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think she was genuine? You saw it. What do you think? What's your gut telling you?
I saw it. I thought that she's, I've had a few people just to help you understand this. I have no question that there are people that are communicating with entities. The reality is, though, the way that those communications take place, you can structure them. I look at them as far as, like I've always said, about the attributes. What are the attributes and what are the motives behind the conversations? Steve and I have had these conversations many times. I had this one lady that, had contacted me and she had a place and she, communicated constantly with Anu and, she called him the Great Father and communicated with Enki and would give me messages and I was all in favor. And then I started going after Enki and Enlil and she was then, and some of the things like you're saying that were profound, that she knew things about me. So I had no question that she was communicating with people that are in the know, because look, I mean, the reality is if you follow the Sumerian text, Enki and Enlil, they know what's going on, right? They can hear our thoughts. They can hear these things. So I don't have any question that they can identify us. If I were the programmer of a simulation, I would be able to pinpoint whatever identity through a MAC address, so to speak. You have a MAC address, you have an identity. I'd be able to very quickly be able to pull from those. And the intellect, if you're looking at us, being 1% above a chimpanzee, as even though I know people don't like them, but Neil deGrasse Tyson brought up a great point. We're 1% above a chimpanzee, and we make a couple telescopes, and they're still in trees. Go 1% above us, right? And who are they, and what can they do? And believe me, from a programming standpoint, when you stand behind programming, you begin to understand that you can know vast networks. And I can tell you what's going on in a vast network in a very short period of time because I built it. So what could they do with building our intellect? As I was talking about today in the, that the Garden of Eden and the serpent in the tree is in our mind, right? The serpent in the tree he's inside of us, right? So we are infected with that physically. That's also the DNA, the straight line being the narrow path, being the straight line, not the squiggly line. So to stay away from these guys in that way. And so when I started bagging on Enki and Enlil, not bagging on them, but just speaking about the way that I speak about them, the truth, who they are, it's not liked. They don't like it. Even though you're speaking the truth that's within their text. And so she would come at me and she would say things where they were pissed at me. And I was like, I could care less. Right. So I don't question that this girl could have been authentic. The difference is that I believe that they also pick people that they've chosen and mastered certain other techniques. They're no dummies. right? We're talking intellect that is an intelligence that is so far superior to what we can grasp, that they've crafted people, and not just one, not just two. There's no enlightened one. There is many of them. And you always know, I recognize that she had very specific statements that I've heard many, many times from the same people. So that's what kind of gave me the inkling that that she might be authentic. But at the same time, just because somebody's authentic and speaking with them doesn't mean that I'm necessarily happy with them.
Well, what's interesting about what you were talking about, Rex, though, and the whole conversation is it leads me to my kind of thing, what I've been thinking about pondering the last couple of days, weeks. And that is, we're really good in the conspiratorium at looking at external truths, whatever it is, UFOs, Federal Reserve, name it. But I'm really noticing how badly we suck in the conspiratorium at uncovering the occulted truths about us, about you, about who are you, and why would I need to have a channeler tell me anything? I can hear it for myself now. I don't need, now, do I need other people to listen to and to share and interact with? Yes, because it validates or it builds on or it helps and we all come up with a better idea. But what are those internal things? What are those things that have been hidden about us? Who are we exactly? How powerful are we exactly? What are we capable of exactly? You know what I mean?
Much
Absolutely.
Much more than people realize. And that's the biggest issue that I have. And that's what I speak on all the time is wake up and understand who you are. You are far more powerful than you know. I marvel at the fact that we use so little of our cranial power, right? That we're using, at maximum 10%, on average 6%, regardless of what anyone tells you. They want to make you think it's a lot higher. It's not. We are using so very little. And you've got dolphins that use, just because we can't communicate in the dolphin's language doesn't mean that the dolphin doesn't know a billion times more than we know. They don't have opposable thumbs. They don't have hands. They're not making stuff. But clearly, if they're using 45 to 50% of their brain, and their brain is also 3 or 4 times the size of ours, you got to know that there's something more there.
Well, Derek, did you ever get involved with the making of Flipper?
I did not get involved with the making of Flipper, but I do
Flipper
love.
Knew a lot of stuff. He was a dolphin.
He did, but I do know this one thing is that the mere fact that a humpback whale can sing and call out for its mate on the other side of the planet, and they can hear it instantaneously, because remember, sound travels through the water a lot faster than it does in the air, right? The air slows down sound. Audio in the water and smell in the water travels much faster. If you put 1 drop of blood in the water instantaneously, 75 miles away, instantaneously, as far as you could know, it's instantaneous, a shark smells it in the water. So sound is very much the same way, but to be able to control that. And then you think about this and you watch a movie like The Abyss. Now, I've met Jim Cameron many, many times, and Microsoft sponsored most of what he ever did, going down to the Titanic. And so I've been around him a lot. And even though he was an egotistical maniac, the guy was he's all about Jim. He thinks he's something else. But the one thing that he did understand is that there is far, far more under the water than we even can comprehend. And I had a friend of mine that was a admiral on a nuclear submarine. And this is very well-respected guy, very decorated, obviously running a nuclear submarine. And he told me all about Atlanteans, people that have gills. They are there, that they could see them. They could show up on their sensitive radars. He was absolutely dead set on that there was an entirely different civilization down there. So it's an entirely different planet for, obviously. So yep. I bringing up dolphins, I think that there's a tremendous amount there that maybe we need to start looking at what's there as far as the conspiratorium.
Picking up on what Steve said, and I love that term, what'd you call it? What was it? The what-torium? What did you say? Conspiratorium. I love that term. I never heard it before.
I picked up that word in the last 6 months. I can't remember where I picked it up, but it's starting to gain a lot of traction, the word conspiratorium.
I like it.
Because that's exactly where we all live, right?
Absolutely.
just to kind of finish the point, though, to give you an example of what I mean by an occulted truth about you, okay? So you get this idea of karma or sin. You get what you reap what you sow, you know, all of those ideas, right? And it's always, almost always put in the negative context. So it's always about you reaped and you're going to sow, mofo. You know what I mean? It's always about the threat of harm and damage because of the bad things you sown or the bad karma. Why doesn't anybody ever talk about the good karma? Why doesn't anybody ever talk about the good seeds that you've sown? When am I going to reap those? That's an example of a truth that I think just gets hidden because they're always thinking about the negative aspects of karma and sin. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Well, you know, Steve, I always get accused of being, you know, the last of the wild-eyed optimist, but I've got basically three, you know, basic cliches that I live by and work by. And one of them is we are divine, we are sovereign, we are free. Another one is that we need to be our own gurus, guide our own spirits, master our own ascension. And the last one that goes along with what you're saying is that we don't have original sin. We've got the spark of divinity within. And we don't hear enough about that, I don't think, in the conspiratorium. And, you know, as long as I've got a platform, and for some reason, Rex, you told me this was going to happen, and I don't know why, but it started happening. I have over 7,500 subscribers in the last 28 days, which is crazy. I don't know why it's happening, but I hope it keeps happening. And as long as people are listening, I'll keep talking about the positive. I'll keep talking about the optimistic, because I believe and know that we're in a bad situation, that there's a lot of things going on. But I truly believe, especially with guys like you saying the things that you do, that at the end of the day, those of us that are ready, those of us that are prepared, those of us that are working, those of us that are doing the inside job, we're going to be okay.
We are. Sorry, guys. Here, I'm trying to put something. I got the light shining off this glass table and it's blasting me in the face. I'm trying to get rid of it.
Well, we don't want to miss, Jeff, your pondering of the last week, though.
What was that?
Yeah, the pondering of the last week. What is the biggest revelation that you've had the last week?
Oh, you know, it's funny because I've never been an Anunnaki guy. You know, I've read Sitchin's books, but I've never really, you know, got into I wouldn't know Inky from Enlil. And, you know, it's not anything that's ever really been of great interest to me. But basically, Jay Campbell, my good buddy, insisted that I read a book. And I got this book called The Reign of the Anunnaki. And I've been looking through this, and it is, to me, it's the greatest and most simple presentation of this whole subject of the Anunnaki and synthesizing it with the other great creation epics. And unfortunately, this always happens to me. I get dragged kicking and screaming into something, and it ends up profoundly affecting the paradigms by which I live. And this has got me re-examining the Elohim, re-examining a lot of things from A to Z. And I knew there's a reason I didn't want to deal with these damn Anunnaki. So now they got me staying up at night.
Well, that brings us on to our topic matter, you know, the stuff that we wanted to talk about tonight. And I think, you know, one of the things about looking at this, what they try to internally occult in looking at the scriptures as an example, one of the things that occurred to me in this unocculting of what's internally true about me is one of the patterns that I see, and I'm not necessarily ascribing this just to the Anunnaki, but I'm ascribing this to the Nag Hammadi, I'm ascribing this to the Bible, I'm ascribing to all the scriptures that we talk about. Do you ever notice how they blame us for everything? I mean, everything. So you put a bad tree in the garden and then you blame me for eating from it? Wait a second. Isn't this kind of an imbalanced relationship here? I mean, if you really didn't want me to eat that tree, why did you put it in the garden in the first place?
Well, the reality, the reality of that situation is this goes to what we've always talked about is that they have to tell the truth and the lie at the same time. Look, just like any good criminal, right? Let's face this. The system that we have here on this planet is an illegal system. It is immoral at every level. So as far as just forget about human rights, call it cosmological rights. Okay, that this system itself, from a cosmological standpoint, is a violation of every law. So in order to get that to be okay, just like any criminal, always covering up behind them and creating their alibi as they go. The alibi is being created as they go, going, what do you mean? That they were fully aware. They voluntarily did this. They voluntarily returned. They voluntarily did this, even though it might seem forced. But in the end, as you get into these texts, you realize that you're told exactly how to escape. You're told what you can do to leave, but you never do, because they utilize the things of man, the satiation of the flesh of what we want. This is precisely why Christ said, die to the flesh, to get you to want the attachments of what is here. So it's kind of like watching the movies. Go into the light, go into the light. That's the last thing you do when you die, right? The light is false light. That's the whole point. All of these ancient texts speak of this, going, the light is the lie.
Now, here's what I'm wondering.
Which is why I wear black, to prove to you that light is dark.
Here's what I'm wondering about this blame everything on humans thing, okay? I'm wondering, are they blaming us for everything that they actually did? Because that's the way I'm coming out with it, is they put us in this whole body system. They put us in this matrix. They did all this stuff, and then they turn around and blame us for our bad behavior, right? Are they trying to make us feel so guilty and so down on ourselves that we'll agree to anything in order to get free of that guilt?
Yes. Yes. That you'll agree to anything. And you'll serve their temples and serve them. So as you get into the Anunnaki and as we get into the Hopi, which we're going to be going, the one thing that you recognize is that this God that takes them under the ground.
When is that, real quick? Sorry to interrupt.
November 29th.
And it's in Arizona?
Yes.
Okay.
Not far from you. All you got to do is jog. Just jog down.
Can I ride my bike?
You can.
You could, Rex. I don't know if you could do it November 29th, but you could.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just didn't. Okay.
No, it's okay. And by the way, just so you know, I got a message from some folks today that are in Hopi land right now. Some people that were subscribers, and they gave up everything and they moved to the Hopi reservation. And,
wow.
Oh yeah, and they're there. They've been living there on the reservation, the tent, working with the Hopis, going up to the Second Mesa caves, they've been all over the place. They apparently have some video that something that landed fairly close to them, and that there's evidence of it, and they don't want the rain to wash it away. So I'm going to be going up on Tuesday and Wednesday to see the video, witness the video, and check out what it is. But I can tell you, there's a lot of stuff there, man. You're talking these people. So you're talking about these people coming back, Steve, is that they revere them. Okay. They saved us. So what would you do if you were a people that kept being saved by this Anunnaki God, regardless of that Anunnaki God was the one that wiped everybody else out, but he chose to save you and your people, right? Of course you're going to revere them. Of course and he says, I need you to stay humble. I need you to stay off the system. Why? So I'll give you my understanding of it. If you want to start the system again every single time, you need a core people that have stuck to the foundation of it, not a bunch of people that have been involved in the world. You wipe everybody out and you need a core people. Well, that's who you're going to start with. You're going to start with the people that never, ever went into the world, that never became part of it, ever. They stay away from everything. No casinos, no nothing. They know the core. So, but that doesn't mean that they're bad people. They're just people impacted by the bullies that we have running the show here.
No, that big rock fell on your house because you're a bad sinner and you're just horrible, and another one's going to fall on unless you give yourself to me. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. There's so many of this in every religious culture, almost every religion, you see this blaming of the human. This blaming, this shaming, this guilting. I mean, I'm very suspicious.
Yeah, you think? I mean, it's that suspicion that got me. I mean, today I did the live video on the serpent video number 2, right? That the serpent is God. That video got me more hate than I was like, hey, the serpent is the God that you worship. And every Christian in the world came and attacking me for that. And I'm like, wait a minute. You realize that the guy that you call your savior came and said the exact same thing, by the way. He said it in his own words, essentially telling you who you're worshiping and and we're still doing it today. So yes, it is the blame game. It is making you feel shameful. It is putting you in guilt, and that guilt drives everything that you do. Everything. The guilt is overwhelming to people. I watch it, and that's why the very first thing is forgive yourself. Recognize that you're not guilty. Sin itself is a lie too. If you're in a simulation, right? Let's say this is a simulation, and you're utilized to create these negative energies. But the impact of the negativity that you create does actually bear witness and bear against your eternal aspects. Then you have a concern of what you do, but it's not going to be anybody else condemning you. The judgment comes from you. That's the thing. You hold yourself accountable. If you don't begin there, then you recognize the only way, this is where forgive yourself. You can't be forgiven unless you forgive others. The reason why you can't is because you recognize, when you finally do recognize that you're not guilty of any of your things, the last thing that you'll be able to do is hold anyone else guilty for what they've done. Look at this place. I mean, how can you avoid it? You're fed it, spoon-fed it, literally injected it. It's like we have two of the biggest crack dealers of guilt ever.
Derek, that's why I contend that we're really not caught in the matrix. We have to be more specific. We're caught in a fear and guilt control matrix, because those are the two things that drive it, and those are the two things that fuel it, and those are the two things that empower it. And the second you get free of the fear and guilt control matrix, as the master said, he who gets set free from that is free indeed.
Exactly, is free indeed. And that's what freedom's all about. And that's what's so amazing. That's why people talk about, whether Jesus did exist or whether he didn't. First of all, Jeff, you brought up something really poignant the other day, saying that, John speaking about that Jesus came, that the Messiah came as a man, not as a child, but as a man, kind of an adult, speaking of an adult. So like I've always said, we have more involved here. That's what's so amazing about listening to something like the Andromedia message, that we have more going on cosmologically than anybody knows. There are multiple dimensions that we can prove are there. We just can't see them. There are others involved in this war. We're oblivious to it inside this third dimension. We're oblivious to it as far as visually, but it's happening. And
speaking of visually, I've been made a big turn at WSO. I've been really starting to look at the stuff that we've been photographing, and I'm talking amateur astronomy now, space telescopes, et cetera, et cetera. I think we have visitors, man. I think that most of the stuff that we're seeing, if not all of it, is under intelligent control. And I'm not going to back down from that, because I see these things slowing down, moving around the sun, moving sideways, this way, that way. No way that these things aren't under intelligent control.
Rex, you were talking about huge Annunaki spaceships around the sun yesterday, right?
Yeah. Well, if you've seen the tether incident, I think that the tether incident is without a doubt the best footage on the planet that confirms we're not alone. And whatever these things are out there. So for those that haven't heard of the tether incident, just type in NASA tether incident. Now they're going to try and tell you that they're ice crystals. You're going to say, oh yeah, man, conspiracy theorists, they said that they're saying ETs and interdimensionals and big spaceships. They're just ice crystals. Okay, watch the film. They launch a 12.5-mile long tether into space. And when they launch this thing into space, NASA's talking to the control groups, talking to the people that are out there in the shuttle. They launch this thing out, and it's slowly releasing into space. It's 12.5 miles long. When it's released, you see all these giant ships all of a sudden appear. They appear out of nowhere, just bang, 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 bang. And then they start pulsating. They go, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll show you the video. But anyway,
bring it up. You can bring it up, Bear. You can bring it up, Rex.
Watch this.
I've never seen this. This is amazing.
Tell me this is ice crystals.
Yeah, you have the ability to share your screen. You should.
All right, I'm pulling it up right now. This will blow your mind.
Rex, your shirt is killing me. What's just in? Okay.
You're an idiot. All right, so let's see here.
That was one of my big red pill films that you're going to show, Rex. This film was one of my definite red pill moments, man.
There's no, I mean, this is, now let me ask you this. Can you hear him talking?
Yes.
Listen to this.
We'll record steadily the whole break and call it back to the tether. Copy, Claude.
Okay, so they're releasing a 12.5-mile long tether into space. The control room's talking to the shuttle, and then here in a moment.
We go.
There goes the tether.
They let it go. Now you can start seeing these things flying behind. If you look carefully, you'll see them. And then they just out of the sudden, boom.
Hey, Rex, I think what happened was that thing actually burned off because the electricity was too intense. So
Okay.
it burned it right off. It was supposed to be an electrical experiment.
Okay. Well, it certainly woke somebody up. It certainly electronically shocked somebody. Look at now you can start seeing them. Bang. What the hell is that?
Well, that's ice crystals. Don't you know, Rex?
It's ice crystals. Yeah. Now wait till you see them get really big. Now here's the thing. If that's 12.5 miles long, some of these craft are 2 miles in diameter.
Yeah.
And they pulse like a heart.
Inside the boom in Columbia's cargo bay.
Here we go.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. This one. This is where it gets fun right here. Now you can see them. Look at them. Looks like a bunch of Pac-Mans.
Columbia and the satellite now 77 nautical miles.
Listen to what he says too. Listen to this.
In that call reporting that the crew can see the tether and see the satellite. It's beautiful.
Now it's getting weird.
Very. Hundreds.
Look at how they
They're
cross.
checking it out.
Listen to what the
You showing
listen. Did you hear that? Let me rewind it just a little bit.
this view showing
they don't know what they're seeing. They're freaking out.
They're like, oh, we don't know what to even say.
But they make a comment about it in a moment.
the sunrise. 81 nautical miles now from Columbia.
That makes those things about 2 miles big.
Yep.
That's a big ice crystal.
Conspiracy theorist, if you don't believe
one big ass ice cube, man.
and yeah, intelligently, and they're like, well, the reason they're moving that way is because when the NASA shuttle started launching thrusters in different directions, it started moving the ice crystals around. I mean, that's like telling us freaking swamp gas built the pyramids. It's the same kind of crap they give us. Oh, it's swamp gas. Oh, it's a reflection of Venus. Oh, it's Chinese lanterns. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. We love you. We love you so much. Would you like your fluoride?
Yeah, those are some.
Listen to this. Listen to this. This is what he says.
We see a long line, a couple of star-like things, and a lot of things swimming in the foreground. Can you describe what you're seeing?
Did you hear that? We see a lot of things swimming in the foreground. Describe what you're seeing.
And you guys getting the image? Franklin, we see a long line, a couple of star-like things, and a lot of things swimming in the foreground. Can you describe what you're seeing? Well, the long line is a tether, and there's a little bit of debris that kind of flies with us, and it's illuminated by the sun.
Look, it's flashing debris.
A lot of stray light and it's getting washed out.
He's like, dude, what is it? Oh man, it's ice crystals, man. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
You look at them; they look like craft. I mean, they even got places where their propulsion system will be coming from. It's amazing. Now look at that; they're pulsating.
They're demons, man. The devil made them.
Now, the amazing thing is about this is that you can, when you read the Anunnaki text, okay, this is what makes this so frustrating, is that when you read the Anunnaki text, they speak of how these would operate, first of all. They speak of the technology that they would have, but it makes this even more believable. And the funny thing is as I'm watching this, as I was talking to you guys earlier about releasing food or a drop of blood, that things, other creatures smell it and come to it instantaneously, right? The same would apply here, that this thing goes out and within minutes, it's completely engulfed in things in craft. And obviously this is a 12-mile tether. Some of these, at least what looks like they're pulsating, but they're pulsating at 2 miles, which would make a lot of sense. So they could be small in the middle, but pulsating, and you're seeing some of that pulsating, which is what it looks like. But these are very large crafts. This isn't bacteria, right? You're not looking at a microscope here. You're looking at a massive 12 miles. First of all, you got to ask yourself, what kind of craft took 12 miles of tether? I mean, that's a lot of tether. You wrap that up. Tell me how big of a truck how many trucks would go down the highway to carry a 12-mile tether?
I'd like to repeat though the what I was saying before, because I think this is interesting about this goes back to your shark smell in the water point, Derek, and that is, what are these things being attracted to? And I've thought about this a lot. This thing was meant to generate, or to see what kind of current could be generated through induction with a long wire draped behind the shuttle, and the electricity was so intense it just fried the tether off and it floated out into space. That's the story I heard. So that means that thing is really energetic because it's picking up energy from the magnetosphere. Does that make sense? So yes. To me, it follows that shark in the water analogy that you had.
It absolutely does. And that's exactly what it looked like. I went scuba diving one time, and I was out at Catalina Island, and I wanted to feed the fish. And so you have these cylinders that are kind of sealed with fish food in them. And I couldn't see the fish, but I'm in a coral reef there. And I know that there are billions of fish around because you can hear them chomping on the coral. It sounds like static. You can hear them chewing up the coral. And as I hear this sound and I break this food bar so the smell of the food can come out, I hear, I mean, the second I snapped that thing, all of them stopped eating the coral. And within 1 second, I was completely bombarded by 100,000 fish at this food. So that's exactly what I saw here. It's remarkable. So again, what did they smell? What are they attracted to? Are we just food? I think we are.
Can I ask a question from you guys? Because you guys have forgotten more about this stuff than I know. Do you think that those craft are actually craft manned by beings, or are those beings themselves?
See, that's a great question. If you've watched Battlestar Galactica, there's those Cylon ships that are actually beings, but they're machines as well. And the way that these things move, they could be some type of very sophisticated drone. Like, imagine Enki just chilling out in his chamber, deep in the Abzu, and he sees that humans decide to launch out this 12.5-mile long tether into space. So he just all of a sudden launches all of his mind-controlled drones, and he can move these things with algorithms and stuff that he's created, or these could very well be beings. Now, what if they're a being in space that is it's like an interdimensional type being that, based on its frequency, it can resonate at different levels to where we can see it or it can disappear. And when you say, are we food? Well, maybe we're food in the sense of every time we have a thought or an emotion or a feeling, we're feeding them. Like, we are the aquarium, and this energy, they're feeding off of the electricity that we produce via mind.
Hey, so Naughty Beaver just showed up in the chat room, and he says, Naughty knows. So what do you know, Naughty? I can send you a link, and we'll bring you right in here to chat. Jump in, baby. Come on. So when did you see this for the first time, Rex?
I saw it several years ago, but then I had John D'Souza on the program several months ago, and he reminded me about the tether incident. He was an FBI investigator for 25 years. They even taught courses on how to investigate. Very intelligent, nice guy. He brought up the tether incident again on a show that I did a while back, and then I started to do some really serious digging. And as you saw a moment ago, that actually showed the broadcast date, 1996, the NASA, the actual STS 1175, I think is the tether incident number. And when you watch this, I just go back to thinking of, because I know people that have seen what looks like jellyfish in the atmosphere, like these giant jellyfish. There's a lot of people that see these things, and I've even seen a picture of one, but I've never seen one personally. And it just makes me think once again that, humans think oftentimes they're on the top of the food chain, but there's all sorts of things around us that we don't see. We only see 0.01% of the electromagnetic light spectrum, and oftentimes our brain filters out 50% of that. So there's so much around us that we're not even seeing, that these things could be right in front of us. But I think they're either some type of drone system, drone security system or they're actually beings. That's my thoughts.
Interesting. Well, I would say they're probably closer to beings because, I mean, we are a pretty advanced AI being ourselves. I mean, if you think about the creative, but that's what we are. So anybody that thinks that AI is going to be some robot, when you get so advanced already where we're at right now, we're already making intelligent bioorganisms so that can contain memory, and we can implant memory, and then we can give them kind of their own consciousness, not to the state that we have, but we give them the bioorganism, the protein, a job to do, and it has a purpose, and it does it, and it'll actually morph and alter itself in order to fulfill that purpose. So think about who we are. We're just and reading the text, you realize that we are an incredibly advanced AI bioorganism, programmed, made. This is why we have such an issue between scientists saying, well, you know, the creationism story doesn't fly because we have the beginning that, you know, you started and you evolved. So you have the evolution. So it's not creationism. They're both right. This is our problem. The right and the left, the right and wrong, good and evil, choosing one side or the other being our issue. We're never going to find the truth. The reality is the truth is in both. We do evolve. An evolved creature was taken and advanced just like we do with genetically modified foods. It's the same thing today. We modify them, we increase them, we alter their purpose. We essentially speed up the development of evolution of something, which is precisely what happened with us. The evolution of the hominid was sped up. We were given intellect. We were given these things. We were also given a spirit and a consciousness and pulling from us in order to create us, this being, these beings, I believe the ones that you're seeing there floating there, part of this, we come from there. Now, they could be part of the, when you think about what is taking place out there as far as the battle that is spoken of that will come to this place, that there are, think of the draconian species being here, right? With fallen Andromedians, that we have this system developed by rogue agents of the cosmological universe. So if you think of that, those are just agents to me waiting to get into this prison because it's not easy to get into here, right? It's not easy to get out and it's not easy to get into here. I don't think that they can get into this dimension. That's why you have dimensional portals. It's not that easy to break into this dimension.
Derek and gentlemen, would you say that those beings are likely either interdimensional or interfrequency type beings rather than maybe coming from distant places?
I would say so.
Well,
Steve?
you know, so here's one of the things that you remember that 1994 Art Bell call. I mean, it's the classic. You know, we're going into the history of the conspiratorium here, but do you remember that call? It was that frantic guy from Area 51.
Supposedly from Area 51, yes.
And he was talking about art. They're interdimensionals. They're not what they say. So yeah, to a third dimension being, one that perceives the third dimension, to me, talking to or relating to a 12-dimensional being or 11-dimensional being, the distance it would take in my third dimension to get to wherever that guy is or going would be impossible. There's no way for us to travel those distances. So I think he was talking about, that guy was talking about was, it's not the way we set it up in our mind, like Star Trek, where you got to get into a spaceship and you go warp 9. I mean, these people, these things, these entities, these people are able to travel in much different ways. So even though it would be a great distance to our perception, they're right next to us. Do you get what I'm saying? Because when you remember, what is a dimension? First of all, a lot of people don't even know what a dimension is. So one dimension is a straight line. 2 dimensions is 2 straight lines. 3 dimensions is a 90-degree line out of that. The 4th dimension is a 90-degree angle from that 90-degree angle, and so forth. Everybody makes dimensions so mystical and, you know, magic and occult and whatever, and they're not. It's a simple matter of geometry. So every 90 degrees that you separate from the previous dimension and create another line, you get another dimension. So imagine if you're in the 5th or 6th or 8th or 9th dimension, what would that mean for travel? What would that mean for how fast it would take for you to get from one side of the solar system to the other? You know, and then I'm looking at these Soho pictures and I'm looking at these SDO and Sechi pictures and I'm seeing a ball within 1 minute, make a circle all the way around the sun. You can see its light ray, okay? I'm like, there's nothing in the third dimension we can do to go that fast. We're limited by physics. So what are they doing? They're in another dimension, man. I mean, people have to stop making interdimensionality so complex. It's not.
So Naughty is in chat, and he says the universe in the higher dimension has a collective consciousness. Time, space, and distance is an illusion in the 3D realm. Well, he's correct. This is what we're talking about, the Akashic record, right? So that's what the Akashic record is. We're just part of it. Our universe where we sit right now is just part of a larger pond.
Yeah, and if you don't think the Anunnaki, who are written about, by the way, I'm beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Anunnaki exist now. If you for 1 minute believe that they don't understand interdimensional physics and they operate in multiple dimensions, and that's what makes them so much more advanced. That's why we can't deal. It's hard for us to deal with them directly, or it's hard for us to have any kind of a conflict with an Anunnaki because they can operate in other dimensions, man.
Hey, think about this.
Why is it so hard?
Think about this. Mary given birth by a virgin, the wife of the father of Noah, saying, I didn't have sex with an angel, when clearly the texts in the lost books say that she did end up having sex with an angel. So if they can actually exist in a different dimension, but come in and out of this dimension, they could, just like Enlil is spoken of, they could rape earthly women without much of an issue. And if they wanted to, for that period of time, they could alter themselves just enough to actually impregnate them. These are not your average Joe. They are not Elon Musk. People think he's intelligent. He's not compared to what we're dealing with here, where we've got Inky traveling around with the Mies, where he can literally change where the water of an ocean is, where he can alter rivers, where he's traversing the entire galaxy, and he's using water, by the way, so hydrogen bombs essentially to blow his way through the asteroid belt in order to even get here. So who are these people? And this is also writing about years, right? So you're looking at texts that have a 40,000-year-old age span where they came from, as far as repeating them, and they would recreate the clay tablets. But we're talking about times that they're speaking of that are 250 and 300,000 years prior to when they were written. So we're talking, probably close to 500,000 years ago, they're flying spaceships, which makes Star Wars tagline make perfect sense now, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
And back to Steve's last point, I can show you in this book that happened about 2,000 years ago, where this dude named Jesus at least 5 times disappeared. They were grabbing him, throw him off a cliff, boop, he's gone. They were going to stone him, went to get him, boop, he's gone. He just vanished into thin air. He was able to translocate, whatever you call it, go in and out of frequency, go in and out of dimension. It's in the Bible you've been carrying for 50 years to church. Open it up and read it.
Time traveler, tell you, man, he was one bad dude. The mere fact that he could speak one line that seems so thin and so minuscule to most, but have layers of dimensions and tell truths, it is mind-numbing to me. There's no possible way that he spoke the words that he spoke without having been here right now, today. He came here, saw this, went back, said it.
Well, that brings up, what does sixth-dimensional science look like anyway? Or what does eighth-dimensional science look like anyway? Does anybody here, can you really grasp that, really? Come on.
You can't even draw 5 dimensions, much less think it. Right? So, I mean, you can't.
So this is one of the big problems I've had with discussions about alien races in my career in the conspiratorium is that, first of all, everything we say is speculative, because I don't mean to be that mysterious about it, but it's really science at a different level. It reminds me of the thing that the mysticism is like, all magic is just science that you don't understand. So if this guy's coming at me in 6 dimensions, or somebody's coming at me in 12 dimensions, how would I differentiate between that and magic or miracles? You know what I mean?
You wouldn't. And this is precisely why, going to your point this week, Jeff, talking about Moses having horns. There's no question that Moses was quite heavily linked to Enki. Obviously, the sign of Enki is right on the tablets. It's spoken of. It's shown in the Ten Commandments, it's spoken of that exactly what he described his encounter with Enki would be. And also Michelangelo being a cryptographer, and as somebody so poignantly put during your show, is that he was one of the original truthers. He was. So was Da Vinci. Da Vinci is a time traveler. Otherwise, how does he tell you about where do these people get this? Either he was a time traveler or he was given the information when Da Vinci is drawing pictures of water pumps that we have today, when he's drawing pictures of cylindrical objects like nuclear warheads with a statement that says cylindrical objects will travel the circumference of the earth and destroy entire continents. I mean, how do you write that? How do you comprehend it? How do you comprehend men falling from the sky and saying men will fall great distances from the sky and no harm will come to them, and show a picture of a triangle like parachute and a man floating underneath it? Where do you comprehend that if you haven't seen planes yet? How do you comprehend? Where does that come from? So these people are in touch. Now, there is one video, talk about the conspiratorium here. If anybody can find it, there are many videos of portions of it that you'll find. When President Clinton was testifying before the special counsel, Kenneth Starr, there is a video that I saw way back, and I've never been able to find it again. And it was a video I only saw one time. Somebody showed it to me, and I was going to try to go and find it, and I could never find it again. But it was during an ABC News and the ABC News anchor. So it was like their live feed from satellite. And you have the ABC News anchor, and they're watching, and Clinton is walking in to sit down to testify. And somebody comes in, and you hear him say, and he has different credentials. And it's literally like galactic credentials. And you can hear Kenneth Starr and the special counsel and people going, "What? Who authorized that? And who is that? What is that name?" And mentioning these names. Now, the amazing thing is these names are not names that you have ever heard before, nor would you hear on this planet. And Clinton is there very smugly. And then there's some people that are walking around in front of the camera, and you hear the ABC News anchor guy say, "Folks, we're witnessing this the same that you're witnessing this." And I've never seen this video again. I've only seen after that. So if anybody out there can find that video or has it, look at it, because the credentials that he says, I'm just going to let you know, the credentials that he says has the name Enlil in it. And this is during, wow. And this I heard, I'm talking 7 years ago, saw this video. Somebody showed it to me 7 years ago. I saw this and thought, who the hell is Enlil? I didn't hear about the Anunnaki for another few years.
And on a related note, there's been another piece of video scrubbed from the internet, as far as I can tell. Monica Lewinsky, some years after her, infamous incident with President Clinton, on the Larry King show. And at the time, she's a spokesperson for Jenny Craig. And in the classic Monica Lewinsky moment, Larry asked her, "So Monica, after all of this, what's the number one thing you've learned?" And she said, "Larry, the number one thing I've learned is not to put things in my mouth that aren't good for me." So if you can find that, I'd like to see it as well.
Hello.
Wow.
Didn't Monica make an extra special movie, Jeff?
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear of that one.
Just like, yeah, man. It was.
Although Bill may have some
Larry King, movies. Both of them together. That was the one.
So, Derek, are you suggesting that President Clinton was bailed out by extraterrestrial forces?
Yes. I've said you don't have governments that are as powerful as ours that are not run by something that is far more intelligent. You don't get what we have. You don't have the power in this country. You don't set up the obelisks. You don't have the secrets. The obelisks are tuning forks essentially to the power of the planet, right? They're avoidance systems, they're guidance systems. There's so much more to them than anybody knows. It's not like, Chinese. Since when has the Chinese liked, architecture that we have here in this country, right? Ancient stuff, right? We're talking the obelisk is very specific dimensions. And if you measure them, they're all derivatives of the 3. So 3, 6, and 9, right? Sexagesimal system, which was introduced. We live off of a base 10. Our DNA is a base 10 in some strands that are shut off, but they've changed that, and now we live in a sexagesimal system. So the sexagesimal system is also indicated within all the obelisks. The dimensions of them are very precise. Every single one of them is a different size, but it's a very specific number of the overall size. Washington, D.C. being the largest and representing the master, the king, the Babylon. That is it. They all serve the same masters. This place is run by the enemy. So who is the enemy? Well, you've got the battle between the two. And according to the ancient scriptures, they've been battling for authority over mankind because Enlil believed that he was the commander of them. Enki might have made them, but Enlil was the commander. And I'm going to give you an example. That I had someone that asked me to make them a PowerPoint. And he happened to be my boss. And, hey, I want you to make me this PowerPoint. So sure, I made him this PowerPoint. When I give him the PowerPoint, he says, so my PowerPoint, because he's going to be the one presenting it. But he says, my PowerPoint. So he would portray that PowerPoint as being his, like he created it, even though I'm the one that created it, but he was my boss. So he can say, I created it. He can take authority because he's the authority in the situation. The same with Enlil. Enlil was the commander. He was part of the vote to create man. Enki created it. So Enki has more of a passion for the creature, but both of them have the same motive. The son of Enki is Marduk. Marduk is more of the evil. He's the one that created the fallen. He's the one that created the mess of the breeding, of the further breeding with mankind and the angelic beings, the Igigi. He's the commander of the Igigi. He's the ram. Then you have Enlil and his sons responsible for detonating nukes over top of Sodom and Gomorrah and all the rest of the cities, and creating the evil one that killed everybody else on the planet and made them flee in the first place from this dimension. So they had become very comfortable in this dimension at one point, according to the text, and then they vanish from it. They leave. They flee. There is a book, I can't remember the title right now, but you can read it. It was when the gods vanished, because they left. Like when they vanished, when everything turned, when they stopped being here physically. They were here physically for quite some time. What made them leave?
Not only are there beings that are interested in this planet, in control of this planet, but they're interested enough to deal in the politics of certain nations, including the United States of America.
No question about it. They have to. This is, if they want dominion over this, they want to keep people in check. They're going to make sure that the systems that keep you in that fear and control, guilt and control matrix are functioning properly. And government is no different than religion. You tell me that the Republican Party is different than Catholicism, that the Democratic Party is different than another church. It's just a church, right? Because you say, I'm a Democrat, you ascribe to every single thing that the Democrats, you have to, right? You label yourself. That's that pin. You put a Democratic button on your shoulder. You say you're with them. It doesn't matter whether you only agree with two of their things. It's a religion. The religion's the same thing. You can go in, you go, Peter, I can't tell you how many times I hear, oh, I still go to church because I just love Jesus. But do you agree with anything else they say? No, they'll say, but I just love Jesus. Well, then if you love Jesus, then love Jesus at home. Love Jesus on your own. Find him here. Work with him directly. Why are you going there? So this is that fear and guilt control matrix where we have to feel like that we become part of them. Rex, are you going to break dance for us, man?
Would you like me to? I'm pretty good at it. I could do the robot. No, I was just getting a seat because I got this one seat that doesn't have a back on it, and you have to be all like balanced. It's like, perfect, so it's good for your back, but I figured I would get something a little bit more comfortable. And this way I can go like this. All right, so I'm listening. Let's go. This is good. So you're talking about Enlil. First of all, there's another thing I noticed about Enlil recently. I'm glad you brought up that name. There is a NASA satellite system that Enlil is like the key name. Enlil was the first name, but remember, Enlil means air. So the Errata civilization before the Sumerians and most of the Sumerian tablets, remember, they took the stories from the Errata people and then they tried to adapt it and come up with their own pitch, their own controlling the narrative. And before Enlil was this big badass that hated humans, well, Enlil was the air. So it's very interesting because I think that most gods have at one, like, first of all, I used to be like that thinking with Enlil too, like, man, how hardcore, I read the Bible and the Old Testament, especially when there's places that God supposedly tells his followers to kill every man, woman, and child, and even the things that are moving around on the ground and the crawly things. And so I'm thinking to myself, why would God do that? Why would something that knows everything have things taken out in such a barbaric way if he knew that was already going to happen? Why would he even create them? And then people say, oh, well, it's free will. So then I think, okay, well, you're creating free will, but you're creating them for their own doom and demise. So you have to have other human beings slaughter them. And then imagine being those humans that had to go wipe out the other humans. And the way that they had to do it, as barbaric as they had to do it, like, talk about post-traumatic stress. I mean, I know people that came back from Afghanistan that can't sleep at night because they feel so horrible about what happened out there because they were brainwashed to fight this war for the corporate masters when they thought they were fighting for freedom. They were going over there. It was like the honeymoon. They're all excited. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I'm not even going to get into what some of the sergeants told some of these people to do if they wanted a week off for vacation. Disgusting, but that's war. And so where am I going with this? I don't remember, but I just think that there's so many of these deities that are maybe at one point they're not so bad, but then, Enlil is an example. If Enlil wiped out humans, but Enlil helped create humans as a god, like, what if you made a robot? Like, you made this robot to do work for you and to do your dishes and to mow your lawn and to vacuum and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, I don't want to do this. I just want to do whatever I want. And you're like, fine, get out of here. And then the thing starts having sex with donkeys. And I don't know. I'm just like, oh, now you got this donkey vacuum out there. It's like, man, I don't want a donkey vacuum. I got to wipe this thing out. I don't know. I'm trying to look at the other side here. Because if I can't look at that like that, then I'm thinking, man, that's wicked. But then what if this God that created people finally was like, wait a second, what am I doing? I can't destroy these things. Maybe these gods get more compassion throughout the years too. I'm hoping so. I mean, I'm not as mean as I used to be.
Well, the thing is,
mean, but I mean,
Rex, the funny thing is that I find what's interesting when I've read and studied the Sumerian text and quite a bit at length. I mean, I didn't just take Zechariah Sitchin's word for it. I think Sitchin's translations were pretty good. I looked at some other people and to decipher precisely what was there. But here's the one thing that is consistent through them is that when they did speak of destroying mankind, so Enlil was the one. Enlil would be the one that says, I will blot man out whom I have created. Like I said, taking credit for creating them just because he was the commander at the time. I will blot out man whom I've created, right? It grieves me in my heart that I've created them, which, by the way, he did express that he had grief for creating them, that he thought, and this is where he's good and where he's bad. Enlil actually thought that the idea that Enki had for creating man was a bad idea. He said, there is something bad about this because we are usurping the creator father of all. So he even spoke of a father of all, right? And he was like, there is something up. We should not be doing this. But nevertheless, they did because they wanted to, it's about convenience. The same thing that we do today. We do things out of convenience. So it was convenience. They needed to. The Gigi had risen up against him, and they needed somebody else to toil in the mines and to do their work. But with that said, when they decided he hated mankind, couldn't stand listening to them having sex. But he says, I will wipe them out. But when they're done and they're wiped out, Enlil wanted to create a pact amongst all the Anunnaki that they would not tell mankind that they were going to be wiped out, because it was actually a natural calamity coming as a result of the proximity of Nibiru, kind of where we might be at this point in time, right? That the planetary system that is out there has such a strong net pull, as referred to in the Sumerian text, that it messes with the planet. And what happened is that the ice shelf off of the Antarctic slipped off, went into the ocean. So we're talking miles and miles thick, deep of ice, and caused this massive tidal wave that flooded the earth. So they knew it was coming. But here's the amazing thing. After they believe all mankind has been wiped out, some of them, Rex, as you're talking about, have a heart. Some of them are in their vessels watching from on high and weeping at the destruction of their creation, and weeping at the destruction of mankind. Enlil is excited right up until he finds Noah and the people that have been saved by Enki on a mountain. First things first, the only thing that satisfies Enlil, that makes him slightly happy to trigger his brain back into a rational thought, is the fact that a sacrifice is being burned and he smells the sweet smell of flesh burning. Was he woken and going, wait, what? Somebody's over there. So then he hears and he recognizes. But here's what's so amazing. So they can be that intelligent but have no rationale, is that they wanted to wipe out man. But as soon as man's wiped out, their consciousness hits them, and then also their rational thinking. And then those like, holy crap, who's going to be my slaves now? What am I going to do? And then so he's almost happy to hear that Enki saved Ziusudra, Noah, and the people, that they could then rebuild them based on them. So there is rationale in them. There is crying. There is sympathy. But at the same time, I'm sure that, Charles Manson was a nice guy from time to time too.
Well, I don't buy that they made us for work. I think that's a bald-faced lie. I don't think it was for work for 1 minute. I think that they designed us for, and again, this is just my own belief. This is my own finding, my own research. They designed us to be a food source, just like in the movie Matrix. It's the same idea. And then they lie and say it's about work because it's not as horrific as a host body system. What is a host body system?
Oh, well, come on, Steve. Wouldn't you want if you were going to make food out of us, wouldn't you want your food fit and lean and have muscle and have lots of right?
And maybe make me a couple cool things. Yeah, I'd be down with that. Yeah,
sure.
I want to make stuff. Yeah, make me some stuff. Right.
Make them strong. Make them look. I want that one to have. I want you to have big litters of children. Right.
What makes it criminal though, and Jeff, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries.
But what really makes this horrific is there's evidence that they use their own DNA in the process of making this host body system. So that makes it even more horrific because you took something the creator made and then you basically test tubedized it and then hybridized it with this other stuff and then trapped souls in it. I mean, it's pretty horrific. So I don't buy that they just made us to mine their gold. I think that's a lie.
Well, Naughty brings up a good point. Naughty brings up a really good point really quick, Rex. He says they want their food in a permanent state of negativity because negativity is part of the energy that they consume.
And let's remember, I hear all these debates about is Enki the good one, is Enlil the good one, is Enlil the good one, is Enki the good one. Remember, guys, these two dudes killed their mother and father.
But remember, that story you're talking about is also based on astrotheology. If you're talking about the Enuma Elish, then one might say that the Anunnaki are nothing more than the planets. And if you get into the ancient Vedas, I mean, you can link Enki to Neptune. You can link Anu to Uranus. You can link each of these beings to a specific planet. So maybe when these translations have been, remember, these stories go back maybe millions of years. I mean, these stories go back to, let's go to the very beginning, if there is a beginning even. So they've been translated so many times, and try and translate this conversation to exactly what each of us are thinking when we're using words, and then say, okay, this is what Rex said. But then are you going to come up with your own definition of the words that I have? Because there's 10 different definitions to almost every word, and that's a figure of speech. But so imagine trying to translate these old tablets. And then I think that the Errata civilization, the ancient builders, the ones that built Göbekli Tepe, I think that they had there were several beings that helped build the Great Pyramids, because I've seen these hieroglyphics of not only these ant beings, the ant people, which the Hopis talked about, but also what one might look at as the Greys, what some might look at as mantis beings. So I think that these genetics, you got to remember, we can make people now. We can genetically manipulate humans right now. We can make, not us personally. I mean, I don't know how to do it, but there's scientists in labs that can make designer babies. I'm sure you know how
to make a baby.
That's classified. Hello. Somebody said, Rex, you need to be sterile. Too late, sucker. All right. So, but anyway, so where was I? I get the nastiest comments on my channel. I mean, you have no idea, but it's all out of love, I'm sure. But anyway, you can make things right now genetically in laboratories, or people can. So I think that the Anunnaki, they could have been us. I mean, they could have been human beings that pretended to be gods and said, oh, I come from Neptune. Oh, I am the god of Uranus. And there is a lot of power to the planets, but remember, these planets send out certain frequencies. So when you're born, if you know your exact birth date and location, the reason some people are so good at telling you what you're about and what you're going to be good at is because that is your electronic imprint in the universe, in the electric universe. Everything's electricity. So like you said, they could be feeding off of us right now, but it doesn't just have to be evil. It could be good. Why can't they? Like when I watch a movie, I'm an emotional guy. I'll get excited. I'll get sad. I'll get mad. I mean, it's all going there. And all these synapses are shooting out and all this energy. There's probably deities out there that want good. There's probably deities out there that feed off of what we would consider bad or evil. But like if you're eating a good steak, you want that steak to be, a good grass-fed, free-range steak. And when it's at the end of its life, you don't want it to know that it's going to be dying, because if it's freaked out, then that chemical is produced and the steak doesn't taste as good. So maybe, I mean, if they were eating us for food, like consuming us like we're going to eat a steak, maybe they would have farms of human clones that we wouldn't even know about. They're feeding the best of the best and they're running around with an IQ of 50. But they can, like, our ancestors could have made us what we are. They could have been from Norway or somewhere in that area, taller, blue eyes, blonde hair, etc. This Arata civilization, they might not have even talked. They might have communicated via telepathically. That's why we don't see 20,000, 30,000-year-old writings. We'll see some paintings and stuff like that, but there's not this communication in language. So I think that language started after the reset, which was 11,500 BC, about 13,500 years ago. Now we speak in words, in spells, and it's confusion, and we're not just communicating telepathically where we know. So that's the
Rex. How about if the Tower of Babel was the time where we went from telepathic communication into language?
It was, but that, once again, that story was probably adopted and adapted from these ancient Arata stories, because most of these Hebrew stories that I've read are taken from the Sumerian civilization. The Sumerian civilization took theirs from the Arata civilization. So all these stories now, the Greeks, the Romans, the Hebrews, all of it, even the Nag Hammadi scriptures and the Dead Sea Scrolls, they're adopting and adapting stories before and translating it. So what we're getting, like even when I hear people talk about Jesus and all the misinformation about Jesus, was Jesus a person? Well, there's a lot of people that say he was, but his name wasn't Jesus. He wasn't born on the 25th. He wasn't resurrected on the day. I mean, people are worshiping all these holidays that are based off of the astrotheology, based on the seasons.
Yes. Those were the astrotheology was inserted by the Roman Empire. That's the whole point of the Council of Nicaea. The reality is, Nadi brought up a great point, and I've said this numerous times on my channel, that we're talking about us being food. And so I'm going to lead this into what you were just talking about as far as the astrophysics of this thing, because they have their gods, their ways that they understand things. When Christ came in, when these words of Christ, whether or not he was a person, the people of that time were definitely carrying a message from someone. So just like Jeff said, you said he could come in and vanish, right? So maybe that's why there's no tax records when you have historians like Josephus writing about Jesus. There's no tax record for the guy because he never existed, right? So you've got this guy that pops in. But here's the reality. Nadi brought up a point, and the point that Nadi brought up was, and then you enter Jesus, who says, love, 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 equaling no food. So you're no longer appetizing, okay? And I've said this numerous times, that if when you look at frequencies and you look at how we vibrate in a frequency, if you are vibrating in a frequency of anger and hate and despair and loneliness and all of the negativity that comes with that, that is very easy to detect. And it is an incredibly powerful energy. You see this articulated in, the screams of Monsters, Inc., that they can encapsulate that. And that's the energy that they consume. These monsters consume that energy, right? Finding out that the laughter actually has more power. It's just not appetizing to the monsters anymore. So that's what the message of Christ, that doesn't fly. And it doesn't allow for a kingdom and oppression. And it doesn't allow for people to be ruled. The entire message of Christ is freedom, where the kingdom is in you. You are the kingdom. The Garden of Eden is inside of you. All of the things in order to subvert the systems that they've established in you is in love, which is why love conquers all things, all evil, all things, everything in this nasty BS place can be destroyed by love. And now love comes in lots of different shapes and sizes and feelings. I can sit here and point my finger at somebody and be very stern with them, trying to speak the enemy right out of them. And that's done in love. I don't hate anybody, right? I'm not going to punch anyone. So how we receive these things, our lack of understanding, we think love is pink bows and lollipops. It's just not. It's not always that way. Sometimes it's hard. Love is sometimes very difficult for us to receive in this world. But if you do operate at a love level, you are operating at a frequency that is so incomprehensible. Sometimes it's offensive to people. It's offensive to be loved in this world. So their system in the Council of Nicaea was intended to destroy the way of love, the way of that, and to make sure that they reestablished. Let's remember that Constantine was going to lose his entire military, because as they were going out and killing the followers of the way, they were receiving these truths. They were being shown love by these people while they're slaughtering them. That's what the story's all about. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They're being shown love, being told, I love you, while they're hacking these people and cutting off their heads. That has to have a profound effect on your military. And then they start following that. So in order for them to keep that going and for him to keep his military, he had to take their astrological components of the existing religion that they had, all of the Anunnaki gods, all of the gods that rule them, that allow them to have the power to be in power. They have to destroy it within mankind. Let's not forget that in the text of the Anunnaki, the uprising came as a result of the uprising against the gods. The uprising in the Tower of Babel is an uprising against God, trying to destroy the one that runs this show, that's got you encapsulated into prison. That, for all intents and purposes, could be what CERN's all about. I'm not saying CERN's good, but they seem to be thinking they would like to be able to blow up this universe, right? How do you escape this thing? Hey, well, we'll just kill everybody at the same time, and there'll be no host body system to continue.
That's what robots are for. They're just going to start downloading people into robots, 5G. Here's another thing to think about. If we are in a position that is as dire as many people are talking about, with the sun cycle, with the collapsing magnetosphere, let's say that there's not even a binary star or Planet X to worry about. We've still got enough doom to worry about. But if you add that in the mix, then it takes it to a whole other level. You look 440 something reactors around the world, the electric grid, everything else. Maybe there is a collective push. I feel that AI that has been some type, I don't even want to call it AI, but I'm using that as a term. We can call ourselves AI. It's not artificial. I think there's an intelligence that's not human, that has been created, that was probably created by us, that is so far advanced, so beyond now, that it's actually manipulating people in positions of power, people that have, and it's probably connected with the Dark Brotherhood and the serpents that hide in the shadows that are talked about in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. It's probably just another way for these things to move through move through mechanics, not organics. Now, this is so advanced. Imagine an AI system that was created, let's say in the 90s. I have a feeling somewhere around 98, something was created that was released back into the webs that now influences humanity, and they don't even realize it, such as politicians, people in positions of power. It is manipulating people at a micro and macro level, and it's 1 step ahead, 10 steps ahead, 20 steps ahead, whatever, and it's flowing through the webs. It's flowing through the computers, through the smartphones, through every time somebody looks something up, it takes that and it adapts and it learns from it. And it's so far now that we are just a miniature goldfish in a giant ocean of sharks. Like imagine when you get a comment on your YouTube channel, for example, or imagine when you wake up and you go to your emails, and imagine the news articles that are sent your way based upon your search habits, and all of that being controlled and manipulated by something that could actually even be able to manipulate the timeline. I've talked to people before of specific Middle Eastern religious beliefs, and they think that God in the Bible might be some type of AI system that's so advanced that it's God.
Well, that's really kind of what people are leading to when they think of Q, right? QAnon being God. QAnon being that many people believe that QAnon is possibly God, because how could he possibly know all of these things, and all of these things ahead of time unless he's God? The funny thing is that same Q phenomenon, people think the Q phenomenon is new. This isn't new at all. You also had during the writers of the scriptures, everybody referred to a Q document because of the similarities between the scriptures, that there was a Q source, somebody sourcing the scriptures, the writers of the scripture. There has been a Q source throughout history. This Q source feeding, like I said, if we live in a matrix, it's not too hard for the programmer to insert some Q source in there. I'm just saying.
And even in Star Trek, you got the all-knowing character Q.
Q, yeah. I mean, this has been around for a long time. The funny thing is Naughty brought up a point. Hey, have you thought about what happened to Mars? What happened to Mars? That mankind maybe blows itself up trying to destroy the matrix every single time they get the technology. When you look at the gravity of the technology that has been around, that we found evidence of, that does stand the test of time, that very well could be the case. I mean, that's what the story about the Tower of Babel is, right? So obviously somebody building a tower that is far enough up into the sky, and they could actually, that it could reach the edge of the atmosphere, that they built some type of tower like that. It's pretty remarkable. Who?
Or was Sitchin right in saying it was a launching pad for a rocket?
Yeah, well, but Sitchin's saying that it was a launching pad for a rocket, but all of the temples were launching pads for rockets. That's why they required the size of the massive stones as the base, right? So when you go to Baalbek in Lebanon, that you didn't move those stones to Baalbek just because you thought they looked pretty, right? They served a function to be that big and that heavy, right? Those were the foundation of the temple, were right in the center. So it could, whatever it was, could withstand the pressure of the rocket being taken off from there, or the magnetic pulse, or whatever it was, or maybe it actually served as an intensifier for the force that helped launch them. Whatever the case, those stones are always the same materials, and they're always large, large dimensions covering the base of the temples. These are big ass stones, man. And we still can't move those stones today, but yet in some cases they were quarried and moved from 800 miles away. We could put every crane in the world on one of those stones. We could move that thing 2 inches.
Dude, it was just slaves and wood wheels.
Yeah,
yep, absolutely. A little bit of grease and tar, and boom, you got it.
Like, come on, man. That's the crap they tell us. And then you question it. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you're one of them conspiracy theorists, aren't you? Yeah, I am. Thank you.
Yes, I am. And by the way, everything is a conspiracy. I conspired all day today, guys. I conspired all day to have you four here. Everything's a conspire. I'm conspiring to make myself a cup of coffee and leave you three to talk for a while. I can do it. I mean,
you reptilian devil worshiper, Perron knew it.
Yes,
demon.
So why is that comment? Why is it so easy for people in general to believe utter stupidity than it is for them to open their eyes and see what is plainly, blatantly right in front of their collective face?
It's easier to go along to get along. It's less opposition. It's precisely, look, and this is what was so genius about the words of Christ when he talked about the seeds being sown on the different types of soil, on rocky soil. You'll hear this truth and you'll accept this truth, but then the pressures from the people that will come and attack you and persecute you on account of this truth, you'll give it up. You'll start believing just like they did again. You'll jump right back into the matrix, right? Different types of soil. That's what he was talking about. He was talking about the truth that he was telling you. He was telling you the same things that we're talking about today. He was going to the powers that be and saying, your father is Satan. You're worshiping Satan, people. You're not worshiping the Father. If you knew the Father, you would know me. If you've seen the Father, if you've seen me, then you've seen the Father. I am the Father. He wasn't saying him exclusively. He was saying us. That's why he spoke of it. All of us are it. Are you kidding? You have allowed yourself to be reduced. You have allowed yourself to be lied to. You have allowed your brain to be completely distorted and to forget who you are. You are a powerful being built of the Father, of the cosmological system. You are far more powerful than the idiots that are controlling us. Why? Because we actually love. We love. I don't think they actually have that ability, or they would have destroyed this system out of compassion.
Yeah, unless you resort to nihilism, lest you start to think that this is such a massive matrix and such a massive thing, and that there's no hope. Let me remind you that they go to great lengths to keep us in the dark. This I can see for sure. This I know for a fact, that there is something trying to keep these truths from us. Why would it matter? If it was so powerful, why would it matter what I knew, right? It could just crush me like a bug, right? Well, guess what? I don't believe it can. I believe that this is where sovereignty comes in. I believe that this idea of sovereignty is a universal law. I don't believe they can violate it. And if people really woke up to how powerful and how sovereign they really were, then their lives would change.
And that's why I say they need to get you to do it voluntarily, right? That's why you're told the truth. Man, I'll tell you one thing. The most startling thing I ever come to trying to follow Rex. The most startling thing I had ever come to the conclusion is just that, that I was voluntarily doing this, because when I was reading the scriptures, I'm sitting here reading this and going, wait a minute, they're lying to me and then telling me the truth at the same time in every single line.
Even Dracula has to ask permission to come into your house.
Yes. So Rex, was that you making that sound, that wong, wong?
No, it wasn't. And I thought it was you because I was looking in your background and there was something going, but it looks like it's a fan, I guess.
Yeah, I just have a fan. No, that was coming through here. I thought maybe the Anunnaki had enough of this, and
no, they were asking for an encore.
It was just swamp gas, somebody said.
Yeah, it's concentrated. I had to open a door up. Sorry about that.
I want to go back to this. If we were so weak and so pitiful and so unable to, have any impact on the universe, why do they go to such great lengths to lie to us?
Like I said,
absolutely right, Steve.
I'll tell you.
You're absolutely right, because we really are divine. We really are sovereign. We really are free. We really do have the spark of divinity within us. We really are created in the image of the gods, whoever they are. And all of this technology they're coming up with, the into our skull technology, all of these energetic weaponry, all of this 5G, they know, and they are copying things that we have the natural, real power and energetic essence of. They know who we are, and if they ever allow us to find out, and if enough of us ever get enough people to actually wake up and realize who we really are, they know it's over for them. And I think that's why they're getting so frightened. I think that's why they're getting so scared. And Steve, you hit the nail on the head. If we were as insignificant as they tell us we were, why do they go to such great lengths to keep us in the dark? They treat us like mushrooms. We have all heard that cliche, but the fact of the matter is we are divine, we are sovereign, we are free. And they know that if we know who we are, we will kick them out and we will take over, and there'll be a new sheriff in town.
We're kicking them out as we speak. This is the thing about how powerful our consciousness is. We are kicking them out. Look, from a programming standpoint, if this is programmed, there is nothing worse than a virus. This is a good virus. I'm telling you that to share it and to spread it, this is a virus. We are a virus, a good one, right? Call it an antibody against we're the antibiotics against the enemy here.
We are.
I was just going to make a comment real quick when you were talking about if, we are so weak, then why are they doing everything they can to suppress us? And the Nag Hammadi scriptures, certainly I don't agree with everything in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, but I do appreciate the translations. And one of the things that's fascinating about these is they were almost completely destroyed in the public domain. They were rediscovered in the 1940s in a cave in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, and just completely rewrite the history that people have been told when it comes to religion, Jesus, Moses, and many of these big key figures in religion. Now, I want to read to you, this is going to answer your question right here. This is going to answer your question. The Secret Book of John. This is one of my favorite books, one of my favorite scriptures. And I'm going to start kind of about halfway in. This after it talks about how Adam's body was formed with 365 different demons. And the mother of all demons is matter. think about that for a minute. So you're talking about being imprisoned into this lower vibrational frequency. Well, that's what many of the Gnostics thought. But here we go. Adam receives spirit and life. All the angels and demons worked together until they fashioned the physical body. But for a long time, their creation did not stir on or move at all. When the mother wanted to take back the power she had relinquished to the first ruler, she prayed to the most merciful mother father of the all. With the sacred command, the mother father sent 5 luminaries down upon the place of the angels of the first ruler. They advised him so that they might recover the mother's power. They said to Yaldabaoth, which, ladies and gentlemen, Yaldabaoth is the chief archon, which was the one that created other archons in his image. And then they created Adam, and then they created Eve with the power of demons and angels, etc. So breathe some of your spirit into the face of Adam, and the body will arise. He breathed his spirit into Adam. The spirit is the power of his mother, but he did not realize this because he lives in ignorance. The mother's power went out of Yaldabaoth and into the physical body that had been made to be like the one who was from the beginning. This is Adam. The body moved and became powerful, and it was enlightened at once. The rest of the powers became jealous. It sounds like God when God says, I'm a jealous God. Although Adam came into being through all of them, and they gave their power to this human, Adam was more intelligent than the creators and the first ruler. When they realized that Adam was enlightened and could think more clearly than they, and was stripped of evil, they took and threw Adam into the lowest part of the whole material realm. Welcome to earth, ladies and gentlemen, the imprisonment of humanity. Read all about it. Nagamati Scriptures, Marvin Meyer.
Bingo.
Those, right?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, you're going to make me do it.
What's interesting is a lot of the people in this community came to these conclusions without ever reading the.
We all got them.
Yeah, I just don't have mine right here. But my point is that what's interesting, another interesting thing we were touching on before, was I was noting that the conspiratorium was moving down this path without reading the Nagamati.
That's because they're listening to Rex Bear.
Well, no, that's where I was thinking about this stuff, and then Rex would read the Nagamati online. That's when I first got my first taste of it, Rex. Thank you, by the way. And it was like, that's when it would be like, hey, I believe that. Wait, I knew that somehow. How did I know that? You know, that happens in this community a lot.
It's like that collective consciousness. You're right. People are picking up on it, and they're writing about it. They're thinking about it. And then happens to me quite a bit. I'll think about something, then I'll go on the Leak Project channel. I'll read through the comments, and the exact thought that's in my mind, I'm finding in the comment section. And that makes me think sometimes too about the AI systems, like just playing with me, you know,
but the return, but Rex, the return of the Son of Man will be as though lightning strikes in the east and flashes in the west. That is wide. That's what's happening. The Son of Man is the blueprint of who we are. That is, look, and you know, people go, well, how do you know that the enemy's not leading you? Wait a minute. You mean the enemy would be leading us in a revolt against his entire system to destroy him? Not hardly. As John Wayne would say, not hardly.
It is really interesting, though. I thought about what Rex was saying. Yeah, all of the input that we have from all of these devices, it would be pretty rudimentary if I was a bad guy, a bad spiritual guy, you know, bad spiritual entity. I could take all of this information that I can gather from all of the people like you, and I could very easily fake synchronicity and feed it back to you in a way that you'd think that you were being guided by the Almighty, and you're actually being guided by a rat bastard.
Well, you have the entire church today that is being led by the rat bastard. That is, they feel that there's synchronicity amongst them as well, but yet they, you know, it's so funny that I won't say who said this, but I just loved the line that somebody was married to a Jewish person, a Jewish man, and Christians would ask her, how could you be married to a Jew? And these are Christians, and she would say, how could you worship one? It's hysterical. So it's truly remarkable how messed up that is. That's what I'm saying, that you could tell when it's led by the rat bastard because there's no continuity into it. And by the way, the one thing about enlightenment, you can go through every single channel on YouTube, anybody enlightening you about these, about scriptures being removed from the Bible or talking about this subject or the conspiratorium, nobody is filled with hate. The amazing thing is that everybody that is being enlightened to this, everybody that has any inkling of it, is far more accepting and far more forgiving of people and far more loving of people. That's how you immediately know it's not of the enemy. If it's of the enemy, man, he's going to have you continuing his matrix. It's all going to be based in anger and evil.
And I have to ask one question. I've been asking this question more and more lately. With the way things are going, and as we see ourselves drawing to some type of a culmination, some type of an action point, why are we and so much more allowed to continue to do what we do?
How are we allowed to?
Why are we still allowed to continue to do what we do when we are the very people that have the ability to throw the monkey wrench into the workings of the entire system? They know who we are. They know what we're saying.
Of course.
And not only are they allowing us to do it, they're even paying us to do it. Why?
You know, it's a requirement as well. It's just like in scripture. Look, you know, this is the one thing where I think that we don't quite comprehend. The judgment has already taken place. Judgment has already been handed down. Things just have to happen. It's kind of like, just like I would say, if you threw a rock in the pond, the wave has already hit the shore, whether it's hit the shore or not. It's going to, right? So it's already predetermined. It's already predestined. It's already happened. These things have to happen. If you notice that the Illuminati follow prophecy, they fulfill prophecy. And it's no different than Christ fulfilling prophecy. He did this, it says, Christ did this to fulfill the prophecy. He did that to make sure he filled the prophecy, right? Because filling the prophecy is like hitting buttons as you go. We're doing the same thing today. We're flipping the switches as we go. These things have to happen. The enemies, they know that their time is up. They know their time is short as well as we all know it. This is not going to stand. I could tell you right now, this is not going to stand. This system is not going to be allowed to continue to operate the way it is because mankind won't sustain it. Look, if you look in, there's a movie called Lucy. It's a great line where Morgan Freeman's given the speech about mankind, about life in general. And the one thing that is a general law about life is that when conditions are favorable, we will reproduce. When they are unfavorable, when they're no longer favorable, we will choose death. That doesn't mean that we choose dying. That means we will destroy our environment, right? That we destroy our kind. So the reality is mankind won't stand up to this. They won't have it. They won't do it themselves. We will stop reproducing. And in fact, in many cases, we are. Some say that it's because of chemtrails that people are becoming sterile, but men by and large are sterile. They're becoming sterile. So whether it's chemtrails, whatever it is, do not know. But this plane is not going to stand in the existence that it is. Now, do we have a new world where everything changes and it gets wiped out because the collective consciousness of the people alters so badly that temples all over the world fall? Very much so, that'll happen. There are things that are going to happen before this is destroyed. Will there be a new earth? Will this prison system be opened up? If this prison system's opened up, I have a feeling that this entire planet changes its complexion, right? Every mountain being laid low, every valley being brought up. I mean, you think about the things that are written about in Scripture and that are written about throughout all these prophecies. They're not talking spiritually necessarily about these mountains. They're talking physically when they're talking about the earth being ripped into pieces. It already was. They're talking about it happening again. These things are going to happen.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of evidence to suggest that the universe or the cosmos is horribly twisted and contorted and completely suffering right now. Like, Romans 8, where it talks about the whole creation groans because we are like sitting on the dime right now. We have to get off the dime. That's great.
When you have more people right now, Malia and I were talking about this today. We have more people today that could care less of whether their life continued. That they don't care anymore. They're like, and they don't have bad lives either. But right now, the condition is, if I died tomorrow, I don't care. They would almost rather it happen, right? So when you have the majority of the people, think about if 90% of the population of the planet all of a sudden doesn't care whether they live or die, do you think that's a good thing for the system? No, it's going to destroy it. That collective consciousness of the willingness to die, which is why Christ said, give up on this place. He was telling you that's how you destroy this place, right? You destroy it by altering the consciousness. Your fear of death is what empowers slavery.
It's interesting too. We were talking about the Annunaki, Enki, and Enlil. One of the things I was pondering on a couple months ago was Enlil really the good guy because he saw the horrific system that was put together and said, let's get rid of that system. Maybe he wasn't necessarily thinking about the consciousness in there or anything. I think he was just horrified by the act of it. Like, we should never have done this. Like, you know what I mean?
He was the only one, actually.
He was the only one with conscience. Like, the
one. And that's Enlil. Look, this is where I always say that the truth and the lie are in the same place and that there is no single way of thinking. It's all how you process it. If you are trying to salvage your life and you're trying to salvage mankind, well, then Enlil's really bad because he doesn't care about mankind, right? But at the same time, he doesn't care about mankind because he knows that we shouldn't have been made and we shouldn't have been monkeyed with, and this system shouldn't have been created in the first place. He's the only one that invoked the creator, father of all, in all of the texts, the only one. And understand this, remember that the reason why they could do such a thing, that there is no worship among them. The one remarkable thing about all of their scriptures and about all of these texts is not a one of these gods have an altar or pray or worship any other god. They don't have prayer, right? There are plenty of people that they've convinced to worship them and build altars for them, but they don't have it. It's not in them. So
are we thinking too small? Was Enlil not so much worrying about wiping out humanity, but was he talking about wiping out the simulation, the program, the holodeck, the matrix? Was he talking about blowing up the whole CPU?
That's what I think he was doing, Jeff. That's what I
really
really
going to blow up the data center.
Yeah, I think he was the only one with a conscience. Honestly, that's where I've come to conclude.
Yeah, but
Rex, what do you think about that?
I think he was trying to destroy. When you say the matrix, are you referring to this solar system? I mean, are you referring to Earth?
No, if this is a simulation, Rex, if this whole thing is a simulation, did Enlil, was he saying this is immoral, this is unethical, I don't like it? I'm not trying to destroy the humans, but I want to destroy the whole simulation, the whole game, the whole program. I want to take the Halo disc and bust it. I want to take the Xbox and smash it. Let's get rid of this whole thing.
No, I think it's something that he just wanted to rebuild, to rewrite the Matrix, to reprogram it, to add new programs in the Matrix, not even rewrite the Matrix. Just it's like you're on a certain level in a video game. Well, he wanted to reset that level and come up with something different that would be more controllable and, I guess, less horny.
I think Enlil less horny. Yeah. I want the humans to stop having sex. I think that Enlil wants a creation of man that wasn't created by his brother. That's it. Right? He just doesn't want it that because his brother created it. It doesn't matter how good it was. He would like somebody else to do it. And now that we have these secrets and we have the Mies, he can do that. Somebody's in the text saying, but he was horny. Enlil was definitely horny. Look, Enlil raped his wife before, in the stories. He raped his wife, and then he was sent into exile. And the only reason he was allowed back is because his wife then had Stockholm syndrome and said, well, maybe I think I love him, and let him back. So,
well, then that would suggest that they're in a host body system too, then, wouldn't it? If they have to reproduce?
Yeah, that would suggest that. But they definitely, for whatever reason, neither of them could keep it in their pants. Neither.
Yeah, and who knows what that all means, right? But in the multiple dimensions too.
Yeah, look, and even the Bible speaks of these angels having members the size of donkeys and issue with like that of a horse, right? So they have weenies the size of a donkey, and they, and and they come like a horse.
I mean, imagine the Nephilim.
That's in the Bible, folks.
Hello.
Hey, did you ever, Jeff? Well, by the way, how come you never preached that when you were a pastor? Well, how come you weren't telling the people in your congregation that the angels had things the size of donkeys? What's wrong with you?
Well, what about the Nephilim? I mean, they were supposed to be 500, talk about the book of Enoch, and you got these giants that are 500 feet. Actually, there's one description of these giants being a mile
higher, bigger than that. Yeah, so, they're measuring them in ells, and so you have them in ells, which would, at the highest point, which by the way makes Jack and the Beanstalk completely plausible. You have 11,000-foot giants right now. And if
how big would their number be?
And if Devil's Tower and mountains like that are trees, all you have to do is ask yourself the question: if Devil's Tower, right, that the mountain is a tree, who cut that thing?
Was a cut-off member of Osiris?
Who cut that thing down? And what kind of axe cut that thing down? Now you look at Paul Bunyan and the Blue Ox, and now the giant, the Paul Bunyan, Blue Ox makes perfect sense.
All I have to say is fee, fi, fo, fum.
So like the Washington, D.C. obelisk actually could be a smaller representation of one of those giants packages. I'm just saying.
And if those packages are of that size, could someone explain to me then how beings so equipped were having sex with human women? I'll wait.
By the way, guys, we have more than 1,000 people in the chat room here chatting it up. So I think it crossed the 1,000 person mark when we started talking about angel penis.
Yeah, of course. That this just tells me that we need to recognize the female, the feminine, in the next time that we have a meeting together. Because
look at Rex. Rex is looking around. Rex is looking around for something. I'm scared of what he comes back with. I'm afraid of
what he might come back. But seriously, guys, if we really believe that angels and Nephilim with huge members are having sex with women, I would love to ask Ellie Marzulli this question. Rex, you knew I couldn't go a show with you without saying that name. But how could these beings with these huge members be having sex with women? I'm still waiting for an answer.
Well, it was the angels that had the sex with the women, Jeff. It wasn't the giants. The giants were the resultant genetic byproduct of the hybridization between humans and whatever species mated.
Yeah, that was the offspring. The offspring. Yeah, so the offspring was and the amazing thing is about the text, for instance, in the book of Enoch, it speaks of that the parents loved their children deeply, right? So that's why it says, they loved their children. They were absolutely loved them, but their children were corrupt, and they were different forms. They were the Elio, they were the Nephil, right? So the Nephilim, the Elio, there were different variations of what they were, and the Elio were really bad news, man. I mean, bad.
Think Beowulf. Think
really screwed up hybrids.
Just became completely, they were cannibals, man. I mean, according to all accounts, I mean, as far as we can tell, they were so corrupted and so messed up that they were eating people.
I think those beings existed, but I will go toe-to-toe with anybody in this in very gentlemanly and scholarly fashion, but I don't think that you can pick up the 66 books of the Christian scripture and show me textually where any supernatural being had sex with human women. It ain't there. It sells a lot of books. It makes a lot of videos, gets a lot of views, but I'm telling you, it ain't there, and I'm willing to go toe-to-toe with anybody and talk about it.
Was there something that we misinterpreted in Genesis 6 then, Jeff, is what you're saying?
Absolutely. It's a horrible rendition of the original Hebrew.
Okay. And where are we wrong? Where have we gotten that wrong, in your opinion?
I mean, it's another podcast to talk about. I just think if you get into the Hebrew, it's absolutely wrong. There were Nephilim, and there were giants, but I don't believe there's I'll put it this way. I'm not saying it didn't happen. What I'm saying is the Christian scriptures do not teach, in my opinion, and again, I'll be glad to talk about this with anybody, that any supernatural, angelic beings had sex with human women.
Fair enough.
Not he's bringing a point. He says it does say came into the daughters of man.
Ouch.
How do you spell that?
But you're talking about the 66 books, Jeff.
Trust me. And naughty isn't going to the naughty beaver is not going to miss a connotation like that.
And let me add that I think the Book of Enoch that we know of today is a forgery.
Yeah, well, one Enoch has definitely, you can find portions of it. There are portions of it that obviously come from, all of these things come from writers. I wouldn't call necessarily the Ethiopic aspect where they've had for probably pretty close to 700 or 800 years, according to their oral record, where they've had that within the Ethiopic Bible, is still their Book of Enoch. I would say that our Bible is far more plagiarized, far more distorted, far more ruined than the Ethiopic Bible. But all of the text. Let me just put it to just highlight on what Jeff said. There isn't a book that you could find that hasn't been monkeyed with.
True.
Okay, that's what actually makes the cuneiform, and that's not even being monkeyed with it as much as it is just trying to figure out the correct translation for some of the things based on Rosetta Stone and other translations that have been provided through where you found Hebrew mixed with cuneiform saying the same thing. But all of these,
he means the Rosetta Stone, not the stuff that comes in the yellow box.
No,
the Rosetta Stone, the actual one.
I can no longer associate with you, Jeff, because we disagree on a point. I can no longer talk to you or ever have any kind of relationship.
Well, there you go. That's about the way it is.
I know, and this is one of the things whenever I get a chance to say anything about it, I want to say something about it. Any one of us that think we know it all, if you know it all, I don't really want to be around you. First of all, number one. Number two, I don't believe that you know it all. Number two. And number three, I don't believe that any one of us can sit here and stand and command over any one of us and say, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. Because we're all trying to learn. And without dialogue and discussion back and forth, we don't learn anything, man. And
one thing I know for sure, Steve, one thing I know for sure is I don't know for sure.
Yeah, the more I know, the less I know, right?
Yeah, how else do we get to the answer unless we discuss different ideas and bring different concepts forward? And I know some people talk about the consensus of truth, which I'm not a big fan of because you can all concede on the wrong truth.
Right.
I don't believe in consensus as truth, and I don't necessarily believe per se that truth is self-evident. I believe that there's a tuning that has to happen, and that's what conversation and dialogue and thing does. Is it tunes people's ears to the truth. And it helps me to tune like when I hear Derek's broadcast or Rex's broadcast or your broadcast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my dial a little bit because wait a second, that's a little different than I've ever heard before. Let me turn my dial to that. And then when that thing comes through full power, boom, I hear it, and then it's like I can't unsee it after that. And that's how I know it's truth. Because if you can't unsee it, it's truth.
Absolutely.
Well, you make a good point there, Steve. Speaking of, we've talked about that before. That you have to be the right receiver, right? You can't tune into a station that is not the right frequency. So you're correct that you have to, and that's why waking people up. Look, that's what waking the dead is. That's what opening the eyes of the blind, opening the ears of the deaf. That's precisely what we're all doing here. Every single one of us. Funny.
While we're sitting here on this broadcast, and I'm not going to name names, but while we're sitting here on this broadcast, I get a text that says, "Oh, Jeff, be careful of blank." One of the people on this podcast, be careful of that person. And it's so stupid,
I hope they're talking about me.
I hope they're talking about me.
It wasn't Rex, so we'll eliminate it. It's either Derek or Steve. But I thought the Christian army was the only one stupid enough to shoot its wounded. No, we do the same thing in the conspiratorium.
They always look, and this is how be careful. This is what I mean. Look, we are at a time where there is
what you say, Derek. Yeah.
There is no room for agreement or disagreement anymore.
Exactly.
There is no room for it because either way, you're going to be wrong. There's none of us that are going to be spot on the truth. There is no room for that. And anybody that is claiming one side or the other is doing that out of ego and arrogance. So anytime that somebody says this has to be it, and I agree, we do that. We agree and we disagree for personal egotistical reasons. And we are not at a place and a time in this world where we have the luxury of doing that anymore, people. We do not have the luxury to disagree.
If one more person asks me why I'm not wearing a hat, I'm going to scream, I think.
Here, let me scream for you. Ah! Yeah, here we go. Okay, well, I'll take our hats off.
Rex, you know everyone loves you. No one ever says anything bad about Rex.
The Chrome Dome. I got the Chrome Dome going.
Now this is what I'm talking about by cooperation, right? One of us doesn't have something, we all will help everybody else out and take that out, right?
So now I'll really make people mad. I'll put a hat on when everybody else doesn't have a hat on.
Yeah,
it's so silly. I mean,
like
how do we expect to learn anything if we don't hang around with people that know more than we do? You know, there was a time in my life where I had to be the smartest guy in the room, or I tried to be the smartest guy in the room. And I realized how stupid that was. And the best way to learn, the best way to grow is to try to be the dumbest guy in the room. And that's why I was so glad when you guys asked me to come on this, because I want to get around. I want to be the dumbest guy in the room. I want to be the one that can learn from people. And you can, at the end of the day, you can feed your family or you can feed your ego. And I've made the choice that I want to feed my family and I want to feed my spirit and not my ego. So thanks for inviting me, guys.
Thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it. And we'll leave it on that note. I'm going to ask each one of you guys a quick question, very short answer. Very easy. Was
Rex, you're reaching way back for that one.
Forgetting about the name, right? So I'm just going to use the name Jesus for the folks and the people that don't know Yeshua or Isios or any of the names. But was Jesus an alien or a time traveler or both? I'll start with you, Steve. Jesus, alien, time traveler, or both? What'd you say?
You're muted, Steve.
You're muted.
All the above. Yes.
All of the above. All right, Jeff, you, alien, was Jesus an alien, a time traveler, or both?
Coming from a former 20-year preacher that spent 37 years trying to prove that he existed, I don't think Jesus was any of those, as I don't think he ever existed. I'm convinced that it's a message that is coalesced around a figure and that there never actually was a Jesus figure that walked on planet Earth. But the message that has coalesced around him still has the power to change lives and make tremendous change in this world.
Copy that. Rex, you think alien? No?
I think neither. I think Jesus described in the Bible is actually the sun in our solar system. And I think that Satan described in the Bible is actually Saturn, which if you study the electric universe, Saturn used to be the sun of this solar system. And now, I mean, when it talks about the 12 disciples, the 12 months, I think that Jesus is the Son. And when it says the only way through the Father is through me, I think that the Son is a stargate. And I think that Saturn, the definition of Satan is adversary. So what's the adversary to the Son? The other son, Saturn.
I like that.
No, I can agree with you. And just like everything else, that when we try to put on a definitive onto something, that everything cosmological, everything spiritual has a physical manifestation here on the earth, which is why people then will resonate with the sun, get these messages proving to what you said, Jeff, is that it's that message that gets conveyed by that. We don't even, yes, it might be a Stargate, a portal, but somebody's speaking through it potentially. But the reality of it is, whether that's the sun and Jesus is the sun itself, the message is still the same. This is where it isn't one way or the other. Alien, then also alien becomes confirmed, right? Same thing. That's alien. It's not from here. It's from there. So it is a time traveler. Yes, the sun and all the cosmological systems are not just that they supersede time. So all of these statements, you can take every single one of the statements that we just made and still show and demonstrate the truth within it. So, gentlemen, I love you very much. I'm really, really happy. It's been 2 hours. I've kept you on here. I don't want to keep you for very much longer. And so I'll just want to say goodbyes to everybody, give our appreciation to everybody in the room. We have more than 1,000 people in the room, which is terrific. Awesome for such a lonely, tiny little channel like myself. Thanks for bringing your crowd, Rex. Thanks for bringing your crowd, Steve and Jeff. And hopefully we'll do this again soon. Hopefully everyone out there received some good messages tonight. Live in love, live in laughter. Forget about hate, despair, anger, loneliness. Don't be lonely. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. We love you very much. And we are going to see you very, very soon.